Hey, comadre.
Hola Comadres, welcome to another episode of Comadreando Podcast. I'm your host, Marcy, and today we have an amazing guest today. His name is Mozo, and I will let him introduce himself. Who are you?
Oh man, what's up, everybody? Who am I? Well, I go by the name of Mozo. I was born Jose, but I go by the name of Mozo. And first off, thank you so much for having me on your platform and on your show. I feel honored. I feel special. And who am I? I'm just a regular old dude trying to make the world a better place, man. That's what I am. I'm just a man trying to make the world a better place.
I love that. Okay. So, Comadres, today's topic is mental health awareness in communities of color. So I picked this topic today because I saw a post by a fellow autism mom encouraging us to take care of ourselves by pouring into us. And since Mozo's platform is based on that, I wanted to bring him on so that we can discuss mental health, right? And like the importance of it and taking care of ourselves. So, since the topic is mental health awareness in communities of color, I decided to bring Mozo on because his platform is basically geared towards men and men of color. And he talks about mental health awareness. So I thought, why not, have him on since that is his avenue. But before we get started, we're going to get it past the nitty gritty. Let's talk about what is your career?
Well, right now I'm a mentor. I've been mentoring young men from ages 12 to 17. I've worked with youth for most of my life, most of my adult life. I worked at juvenile detention centers. Now I work with middle schools and just hold group sessions where we speak about mental health and we speak about different topics. I don't really get into it as much because a lot of the information is private. It's confidential and things like that. But that's really what I do. I work with youth, young men especially. Speak about mental health. Just really speak about anything because from ages 12 to 17, they're going through a range of emotions and things going on. So it's not just I'm not speaking to them about mental health the same way I would speak to someone, to an adult or to a man. I'm hitting them, with little gems here and there where they don't even realize I'm hitting them with knowledge. You know what I'm saying? So
That's amazing.
That's really what I've been doing.
So what made you go into that field?
Well, honestly, I've always worked well with kids. I remember my mom telling me when I was like 11, 12, she was like, "Wow, kids are always like coming to me. Like, I would be at the house parties and the kids would want to play with me. Like I was always had that kind of energy. So as I got older, it just worked out that way. I got an opportunity to work in a school, and then from there, I've just been moving around to different avenues and just opening up doors to different places. Like I said, the most probably the wildest experience was probably working at the juvenile detention center.
Yeah.
That was probably the wildest experience for me. But yeah, I've met so many different kids, so many different people from all walks of life. And a lot of them still they follow me on Instagram and they see what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? And we have these connections for life, and it's really a beautiful thing.
I love that, and I love the fact that you're a male walking into these schools and giving the boys support. Because the thing is, a lot of our boys are raised without their dads in their lives, and or like a prominent male figure. So you coming around and talking about things that are not really probably talked about in their house is like outstanding. Like it's something that isn't seen often, and the fact that you're there to be their support in a way and be there for them, I'm sure they're like grateful for having you around all the time. So I know that you're a dad, so tell me, what has that experience been like for you? Like, okay, wait, before you tell me about that, did you grow up with your father around? And then what has that experience been like for you now being a dad?
Well, I did grow up with my dad around. I wouldn't say around in the sense of like, was he emotionally around? No. Was he, was he there? Yeah. He worked, he provided. He made sure that I had food and I had shelter. And for a long time I held that kind of resentment towards him, but not realizing that was his definition of what a father was. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how he was raised. So that's what he thought in his head what it was, right? But my father was around. He was in my life. He's part of my life. And we have a beautiful and amazing relationship right now because we've had conversations about things that have hurt me in the past and how I felt and how I feel. And that has just helped our relationship grow and gotten so much better than it was in the
Oh,
past.
I love that. So you guys have been able to heal that relationship, which is good. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
what has your experience been like now as a dad? Like, was that the motivation behind, having those conversations with him and discussing those things that you felt hurt about in the past?
Yeah, it definitely played a part because I thought to myself, like, I want my kids to, like, tell me how they feel there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want them to grow up and be like, in their 30s or in their 20s or in their 40s or, in their 50s, and then have to, hold all that stuff inside, that resentment or whatever it is. Like, I want my kids to feel comfortable speaking to me and talking to me about whatever it may be. Now, I also have to understand that they're kids, right? And they're not always going to come to you about everything because that's what kids do, right? Like, I don't want to come to dad for everything, but I want them to feel to at least, like I feel happy the fact that my son that we sit on the couch and we just talk about stuff. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like I didn't have that with my dad, where I felt comfortable just talking to him about anything. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So it definitely played a part into me talking to my dad because and the kind of father that I am now because I realized that I want my kids to have an open communication with me and their father and to feel comfortable coming with me, whatever it may be.
I love that. I love that so much. And I'm sure your kids are, because the thing is, like, we don't realize the things that we do and like the impact that it has on our children until like later on in life,
All
or that you see other people how they are with their children and you're like, wow, like I really am doing something different here, and it's making a difference. But tell me about your kids. What makes them sparkle? Like what kinds of things are they into? What kinds of kids are they?
right. The thing that makes my kids sparkle is that they're themselves. And I love that about them. Sometimes I'm just like, right, like, oh my god, themselves. But I love the fact that they're themselves, that they're comfortable being who they are. That no matter where we go, yeah, like they might talk a little less than they were at home or whatever the case may be, but they're still themselves. You know what I'm saying? When they do open up, they're still themselves, and I love that about them. And that's something that I continue to preach to them is, never change that. Always be yourself, no matter where you go.
Hmm.
Because I don't know for you, but growing up it's always like, oh, when you're around here, act
Yeah,
this
you
way.
gotta
When you're
act a
over
certain
there,
way.
act that way. Act this way, act that way. And I understand all that, but at the end of the day, you should never change who you are just because of who's around you. You should still be proud of who you are, where you come from, what you represent. Um, and that's one thing that I love. That's why my kids sparkle.
Yeah. And they're authentically themselves. I love that
Yeah.
about my kid too. Like I feel like because he's on the spectrum, he's very unapologetic about who he
Mm.
is, and he really does not give a crap about what other people say or how they look at him or whatever. It's more teaching other people how to deal with him than teaching him how to deal with other people.
All right.
Yeah, I do teach him like social cues and things like that, but
Of course.
it's really refreshing when a kid is like genuinely themselves and they feel comfortable being them.
Definitely.
So that was a pretty good segue. So let's talk about mental health. When did you start taking your mental health into account? Like what
Mm.
age more or less, and what was it that sparked that in you?
Um, I think for a long time I cared about my mental health. It was just like I didn't know how to go about it, or I just didn't understand mental health. You know what I'm saying? Like I come from a family where my mother, she's very like big on mental health without her knowing she's big on mental health, but she would always like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? My mom is like, most Dominican moms get this rap for being very like like that, right? My mom was
Yeah.
the opposite of that. My mom isn't like that. My mom is very soft spoken. She's very like calm. She's like that. So for I realized I'm a lot like my mother when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
But for a long time, like I just didn't know how to go about it. Boom, pandemic hits, right? COVID happens, and I get an invitation to like a men's group. Someone sent it to me on Instagram. Like I think like, yeah, there's a men's group based out of California. They're doing like Zoom meetings every Tuesdays. And so I joined the men's group, and ever since then I've never looked back. I've started working on my mental health. I started working on myself because I was in a group of other men that were like me in the sense of like we all have work to do and we acknowledge the fact that we have work to do. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Like we weren't running from it, we weren't hiding from it. We were facing it and we were having these conversations around it. And it just since then I've been just working on myself, and I promise to myself that whatever work I do on myself, I'm gonna give out to the world as well. You know what I'm saying? So like whatever it is that I work on myself and I realize whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm also gonna share it to the world because people need this, people need that, and someone might come across them and they see on my platform or hear from me. It might be like that might spark them to like, you know what, maybe I should work a little bit on myself. Maybe I should take some time for myself. Maybe I need to work on these things, and stuff like that. So that's really what sparked it. And that's really the journey that I've been on. This is what it is. That's what it's been. That's how it started, and that's how it's going.
Oh, that's good. And then have you been to therapy or anything like that, like besides the men's group?
Yeah. I right now I'm not in therapy. I was in therapy. Just my therapist moved, and it made it, and I still have yet to like being able
Find
to
somebody else.
find somebody else. But yes, I've also been in therapy as well, which was helpful too. I just I went on it. I went all in. I felt like once I started seeing the progress and how I felt about myself when I started doing the work, I was like, "There's no turning back." I'm like, "This is it." You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the best I've ever felt in my life.
That's awesome. And during the pandemic, it's like we didn't have a choice. We had to sit down and kind of sit with our shit and be like, "Yo, something
Sure.
has to give," Yeah, like I wanted to say something about the therapist, like therapists moving away and things like that. It affects us, right? But the thing is, you also have to date your therapist. Hold on, sorry. So, what I was saying is that you have to date your therapist. You have to like really like build a relationship and see whether their style of therapy works for you. Like that's one thing that people don't realize. Like if you feel like your therapist is not it, you don't have to stay with them. You can always change your therapist.
Yeah.
And look around for somebody that is more aligned with like the type of person that you are and maybe has a similar background as you. Because another thing is that a lot of the time, people that are not of color don't really have the same experience that we do. So us coming to them about things like racism or whatever it is that we're going through, or even cultural things like,
Right.
overbearing parents. Like your mom wasn't like that, but my family, like, we have issues with like boundaries and like keeping things separate and letting other people be individuals without feeling offended that they're not doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. So, like bringing something like that up to somebody that hasn't experienced that, sometimes it's met not with divisiveness, let's say, but like they can't really understand why. Like why is this bothering you? Like why are you feeling this way, or why is it triggering for you? So, sometimes I feel like people of color can relate more to our experience, especially immigrants. I feel like, when you look for a therapist, looking for somebody that aligns with your values, has maybe a similar background than you do, and you can literally pick and choose, and you can go to psychologytoday.com and find a therapist there.
Right.
I feel like therapy is for everybody. It's not just for certain people. And you shouldn't wait until you really, really need to talk to somebody to talk to somebody. Because like a lot of the time when it gets to that point, it's hard to like get yourself back to center and like back to your normal, right? To your baseline.
Right.
So yeah, definitely. I love the fact that you have been to therapy and are not
Yeah.
like, searching for another therapist.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. Like, and it has to come from the person too. Like, you have to want to go to therapy too. Like, because a lot of people like come up with a million and one excuses after once they start. No matter who the therapist is, right? Because if you're not all in into into the therapy or into doing the work, then you're no matter what therapist you go to, you're not gonna find it the way it's not gonna fulfill you, or you're not gonna find anything. You're not gonna get anything out of it. You know what I'm saying? So.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that us having these kind of conversations, um, not just us, but everybody, just everybody having more conversations about it. I think that we are kind of breaking down, that cycle and the stigma behind therapy and going to therapy and that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
if I tell a young boy that's 13, right, that he sees me with my J's on, my braids, and all that time, yeah, I go to therapy once a week. What? You go to therapy, right? What? You okay? I'm like, yeah, I go to therapy. I just go, somebody I could talk to, da da da. And it's curiosity to them because they see me. They wouldn't think someone that looks like me is going to therapy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They wouldn't. That's not what they have in their minds what therapy is. So that's why it's important that we continue to have these conversations, especially with younger people, because
Yeah.
it just breaks that cycle of what they're thinking in their heads of what therapy is and what it should be or who it's for and who it shouldn't be for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I was dealing with mental health stuff ever since I was like way younger. I remember, okay, so my dad passed when I was 11, right? We never went to therapy. Nobody in
Mm.
the school suggested it. He actually passed away, like, I want to say beginning of June. So we were out of school for the rest of the school year. And then the following year, in September, when we started back again, everybody had quote unquote forgotten, right? So the thing is that here are 3 kids that lost their dad. That's a significant person in your life. And then you don't go to therapy. And then you're like, keeping on, right? Because you're supposed to be the strong person, and like, we don't do that. We don't go to therapy. So pa loco. That's
Right.
that's literally
Nice.
what my family from the campo used to say. Like, eso pa loco, tú no, whatever. You don't need therapy, whatever. So I was dealing with my mental health ever since from a young age, right? I remember actually, Mozo, I remember at one point I used to have I used to smell something, but I feel like it was like, there was no smell, but it was like some chemistry in my brain. I don't know what it was. It was like, for the longest time I smelled this like weird, like burning plastic smell and I would ask other people and they're like, no. So that I feel like that had to do with it, but whatever. So, keeping on, keep going. My best friend passes away when I'm like 30 something years old, right? Another significant person in my life. So I'm carrying all this shit, like all the stuff from growing up, right? Plus deaths of significant people, still not going to therapy. And then finally, when I decided to go, Jai was like, to a point that I was like, because you go through depressive states and you're able to get yourself out. But there was a point that I couldn't get myself out and I couldn't snap out of it. So that's when I was like, yeah, I need to talk to somebody. Because I didn't feel, yes, you can talk to family members, y'all, but a therapist is going to give you advice that is neutral, right?
It's not biased.
Exactly. So you talk to somebody and you can literally tell them whatever, and that stays there. Like, you don't have to worry that somebody's going to be discussing what you said to them to somebody else in your family, or a friend is going to tell you, what you want to hear because they love you. A therapist is going to give you the truth and give you tools to help you deal and cope with the situations, which is one of the things that I enjoy about therapy myself. I mean, I was with the same therapist for, I want to say like two years, and then like after the pandemic, I kind of just wasn't feeling it anymore, so I had to like dump her and get another therapist. I mean, it wasn't nothing about her. It was just kind of like, I felt like it wasn't working, so I was like, I need another type of therapy, somebody that's like different and that aligns more, which happens as well. So
I think it's also proof. Sorry to cut you. I think it's also proof of like the strides that have been made as well. Like you saying, like what happened to you, your experience, right? I believe that if like that were to happen now to a child your age in a school, I feel like someone would be like, hey, maybe you should think about putting your child. That's something that the guidance counselor would say, or somebody, someone in the school building would say that, or come across it. Whether the parent decides to do it or not, that's that's a whole other thing. But it's definitely something that would be brought to the attention of the family and the parents, and that just shows the strides that have been made when it comes to mental health. More work has to be done, but there's definitely been progress when it comes to it.
For sure. Like, I had a student, actually, he wasn't even in my class anymore. He used to be in my 3rd grade class a few years ago in another school, and I kept in contact with his mother, and like, she reached out to me and told me that her husband passed. So that was like, for me, that was like, I'm like, he's the same age I was. So I'm like, the first thing I told her, I was like, you need to put him in like counseling. He needs to talk to somebody. You can talk to him, but there's gonna be things that he's not gonna feel comfortable sharing with you, that he can talk to somebody that is a stranger and that he can build a relationship with that person.
Very true.
So yeah, definitely therapy. And I was gonna ask you, what made you create the platform that, like, I know that you're doing the work already, like outside of Instagram, like you're actually putting the work in and helping children and young men. But what made you create the account that you have right now?
Really, I just felt like it was needed. Like I feel like it's needed in our community. I feel like they need to see someone that from their community that looks like them, that may come from the same background or whatever, talking about it and saying, being like it's okay about it. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like a lot of people want to talk about it, but they don't feel comfortable. Either they don't feel comfortable speaking about it, they're afraid to speak about it. But I've had a lot of conversations with people that no one would ever think they want to talk about mental health or speak about mental health. You know what I'm saying? But like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people don't have the safe space to do it. They don't know who to go to sometimes and things like that. So I created the platform because I felt like, damn, I wish I had a platform. I wish I had somebody that looked like me that I kind of relate to, that's talking about these
Yeah.
things and bring these things to light and just sharing these kind of things on their platform. And that's exactly what it's done. Like my platform, I have most of my followers are either Dominican or Latino or people of color. That's most people that follow me on my platform. It's open to everybody, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that it speaks volumes when there's people that are in my DMs or people that leave certain kind of comments in my posts that come from the same community as me.
Yeah.
And people, you would never think that someone, that they would be doing that. Even they kind of like, I'm sure that people that see this stuff, they'd be like, "Damn, I would never thought I would actually be listening to someone talking about this,
Yeah.
or like have some type of anything to say about it." You know what I'm saying? So I think that representation is so important, and
Yes.
we have plenty of representation when it comes to a lot of other things in our community. So we also need representation when it comes to mental health as well.
Yeah. One thing, one of the reasons why I like created the podcast is that I was on a show and I was talking about being an autism mom and being a special education teacher, and like one of the listeners was like, "Yo, we need you. We need your voice. We need you here." And I was like, "But there's so many autism accounts. Like, why would I, create this platform?" And honestly, there's not a lot of women that are Latina or women of color that are talking about their experiences of
Hmm.
like dealing with, all the things that come with that. Because the thing is,
Right.
like, another thing that I want to share with the comadres is that parents of children with special needs are like one of the top things that they need is mental health support because they don't get it like automatically, especially communities of color. You sometimes like you can have friends and neighbors or whatever, but honestly, like a lot of people don't understand like the nuances and the things that you go through as a parent of a child with special needs. And a lot of the time when you get a diagnosis is very isolating. So part of the reason for the show is like breaking down the stigmas, right, but also creating a community and helping other people pour into themselves. Because the thing is, like, it's so easy to just kind of like just put your head down and just keep going and not really think about and like be like, oh, I'm not feeling well mental health
Hmm.
wise, like let me take care of myself, let me do something to help me feel better you know
Right. Yeah, I mean, and it's like you said, that's what it is. Like someone sees you and they're like, "Oh, she could relate to how I feel."
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's why it's important for us to start these platforms and start our podcast or whatever, however it is that you feel like expressing yourself. That's why it's so important to do it because you never know who is listening. You never know who's like who you're helping out. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I say about my platform. Like, I don't care if it's just one person. I don't care
Yeah.
if it's just two people. I don't care whoever it is. Like, you don't understand. Like, sometimes the words we say and the things we do really save people's lives.
Yeah.
And get people through a day, or you know what I'm saying. So, shout out to you for your platform.
There was a mom that actually reached out to me and she was like, yo, how can we make a group of moms that are in Jersey, that are Latina, that have kids with special needs? Like, how can we get us together? Like, we need a community here. So now, like, my task is like, I'm trying to get all the comadres that are in Jersey together and make some kind of platform that we can support each other. Like, this mom, was having a really tough time with her kid, and she reached out to me and she was like, she was having a hard time, and she was like, I don't know who to turn to. I don't know who I can talk to that can like
Mm,
understand where I'm coming from. So it's important. And sometimes like we get caught up with the like stats and stuff like that, but really the stats don't really matter. It's the message and the people that we're reaching and who we're touching in that way.
and that's what I say all the time because a lot of people get caught up into this, that. like why are you doing it? You know what I'm saying? Like because if we're doing it for numbers, then hey, we got work to do. you know, you know what I'm saying? We're like that can't be the everything. It can't be everything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, of course, you all love to reach 1 million people and and do this, but everything takes it's all it's gradual, it's
It's
all
all
progress.
gradual.
You know what I'm saying? It takes time. But like you have to really want to do it and want to help people and want to make a difference in order for it to even matter because people can see right through it when it's not real or not anyway.
Yeah, when
So
it's fake, definitely.
you, you know what I'm saying?
So tell the comadres a little bit about your show. Watch your mouth.
All right, so I started a podcast uh, a few months after I joined the men's group. It's titled "Watch Your Mouth with Mozo Podcast." And the focus of the podcast is just me talking about my experiences. I speak about toxic masculinity. I speak about mental health, fatherhood. I just pretty much just speak about. I started off the podcast just telling my stories, and then I decided to have people on as well to speak about
Mm-hmm.
representation and mental health. I haven't had a guest or an episode in a few months, but and that's just because I'm getting back to it. It's just like I have so many things going on. I'm just trying to organize myself and get myself situated. But it's
Mm-hmm.
still there. The podcast is still there. If anybody wants to listen and check it out. Um, but that's really why I started the podcast, and that's what the podcast is about.
I love that. Um, so tell me about more about your mental health journey. Like, what do you do to help yourself pour into you? Like, how do you help yourself? Like, when you feel like you're not at your center, what are some things that you do to help you get back to your baseline?
Um, I've really been doing like breathing exercises. Have helped me. Like it all depends on the situation. Like if I'm at home, it's a lot of self talk, a lot of just finding a quiet space, and like I said, controlling my breathing. And reminding myself that it's not the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of times things happen, and also reminding myself that things are gonna happen. That's the biggest thing. Is like I wake up in the morning and say to myself like,
Mm-hmm.
things are gonna happen throughout the day that are out of my control. It may throw off my day. It may make my day go a certain way, the way that I didn't want it to go. But it doesn't mean that I'm gonna have a bad day. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna have a bad moment. It just means that's part of what it is. I can only control what I can control. I can't control anybody else or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of affirmations and a lot of just self talk. To really that's really how I pour into myself and really get myself back where I need to be. And it's really helped me a lot because life is life. Like things happen, things come up, and that's it's the realization of it all. I have my down moments, I have my sad moments. Like I tell people all the time, I'm not happy all the time, positive all the time. I have my moments
Mm-hmm.
when I'm down and I'm sad, and I make sure I sit in those moments and I understand why I feel the way I feel. But I don't let that carry on and me put it out there to the world. That's one thing that I learned. I don't want to now walk into a room and now give everybody all now my bad energy because I'm having a bad moment or give it
Yeah.
out to somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna sit with it. I'm gonna try to work through it, but I'm gonna try my best to also not just project that into everybody that's around me and everyone else.
Yeah. A lot of the time, there's days that I'm just like, yo, I've had it with freaking everybody. Like, not my kid, obviously, but like, I'm at work and I honestly, like, I don't want to, like, besides working with my students, I don't want to deal with anybody. So those days, I know myself. I'll sit in my room and I'll play a podcast, some music, something, eat my lunch by myself and chill because I don't want to give my like grumpy vibes or whatever to other people. Like I feel like I've learned to be more responsible with my emotions or like the things that I'm going through at the moment because I know that I feed off of energy and like I don't want to be putting that out into the workspace, right? So if I know I'm having that kind of day, I'm just gonna like, keep to myself as much as I can, and do little things like here and there to help me get back to my center.
And the crazy part is that when you start doing that, you see the opposite side of that, right? Like then you'll see people that are going through something. They let it run their whole entire day. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're just like, bro, you're like, I'm not letting it get to me. You know what I'm saying? But like, you see it how it happens. Like you're like,
Yeah.
damn. Once upon a time, I was that person, or I was there, and I had days
Yeah.
like that where I would just be like, all right, I'm having a bad day. Now I'm gonna have a bad day, and everyone's gonna know I'm having a bad day, and now everybody else is gonna.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure that everybody else has a bad day too, or that So I think that once you're on the other side of the ball, you see the opposite, and you're like, damn, like and I tell a lot of young people sometimes, like not kids, but just young adults. Like I tell them, like sometimes they let things, and you're letting McDonald's, because let's say somebody at McDonald's pissed you off when you order your food. You're letting this person at McDonald's who you're not gonna see for the rest of the day set the
Ruin your
tone for
whole
the rest of
day.
your day, ruin your whole day. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, if you had a bad moment, maybe they're having maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they haven't, and that's what it is. But don't let that person's bad day now let it become your bad day, and now
Yeah.
you're trying to project that into now have me having a bad day or somebody else having a bad day, because I'm not gonna have a bad day because anybody else. I already promised myself that I'm not having a bad day because of anybody else. I already know that, but I let them know. I'm like, you're setting yourself up for a bad day off somebody
Yeah.
else's energy. You know what I'm saying? And
It's crazy how I like I'm looking back, and the thing you're saying is like I'm seeing myself when I was younger. I'm like the like I used to be I'm still clumsy, but like it was worse before. So one day I'm leaving the house. This is like my first year teaching. I made my own coffee. I'm like walking out. I forgot to freaking close the coffee lid. There was coffee everywhere. And I
my God.
let that moment, that instant, dictate the rest of my day.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, something like that happens. I clean it up. I keep it moving. I don't let that dictate the rest of my day or my morning. Or even like
Right.
past those 5 minutes of me cleaning it up, ya, pasó. Like and it's a mindset shift. Cause the thing is, like, I've been teaching my students, is this a big deal or a little deal, right? And
Mm.
this is like my magic words for them. Like, is this a big deal or a little deal? I tell that shit to myself. I'm like, is this a big deal or a little deal? Like, you need to let it go. Like, it's fine. Like, relax, Marcy. It's good. Yeah, like I was a completely different person before. Like because the thing is, like, as kids and as young adults, we act how we've seen other people act. So in
Mm.
my, like, where I come from, things like that, like spilled milk, would be like a whole meltdown.
Oh my God.
Hi,
All right.
like I'm not that person, thank God, anymore. And I taught myself how to, like, compartmentalize and like separate that from the rest of my day. Cause like, it's so easy to just harbor into that feeling and just like let it go rampant. It's
Right.
like creating a like a tornado and un vaso de
Mm-hmm.
agua. Like, nah,
Forget
that
about it. Yeah,
doesn't
like you
serve
and
anybody.
like you said,
Go
it's
ahead.
easy to do that. That's the easiest thing to do, is to just be like, all right, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the easiest thing to do, is to just be like, let it drag out, and now you know what I'm saying? Like that's the harder thing is being like, I mean, in the beginning especially, the harder thing is being like, all right, it's all right. I spilled this coffee. I'm gonna clean it up. If anything got dirty, it's okay. My shirt's a little
Yeah.
dirty, but it's fine. You know what I'm saying? It's fine. It's just a shirt. You know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna be full of. Why the kids ask me, if the kids at work ask me what happened to my shirt, I spilled coffee on myself. It happens. You know what I'm saying? Like you know what I'm saying? But like it's easy. It's easier to be miserable than it is to work on yourself and try to keep that mindset of, like, you know what I'm saying, to
The
keep
positive
going. Like,
mindset.
right. It's a lot easier to be miserable.
It's true that. So what does self-care look like for you? So now we know like what you do to pour into yourself and get yourself back to baseline. But what do you do for self-care?
Oh, for self care, go on walks, listen to music. You know, I realize even the music I listen to has shifted. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's not even like nothing against like newer music or anything else. Like I'm not even into any artists like that anymore. You know, I'm more into songs. There's certain songs that
Yeah.
I like or stuff like that. But like outside of the Bad Bunny album, as far as albums go, I haven't listened to like any new albums or any music like that. So yeah, music plays a huge role too. I feel like I'm more into like now, calming, lo-fi. Just things
Yeah.
that just calm me down and just make me feel calm. Self care, of course, getting my braids done, making sure I feel good, I look good, stuff like that. Stuff that makes me feel good. I love playing basketball. These are all things that I consider. self-care because the things that I love to do and make me happy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's how I take care of myself.
That's awesome. Self care is so important. And then the thing is, like, a lot of men feel like self care is like for girls. No, it's not. Like, go out there and get your little facials, get your hair
Yeah,
done, you know, get your
right,
hair cut, do whatever you got to do. Like, it's important for dads too. Cause, like, there's a couple of dads that, like, not a couple, there's a bunch of dads that listen to the podcast. And I feel like, you know, a lot of the messages are for women, but I want them to know that I see them and I understand, and I want them to take care of themselves too, because, like, you know, they are what their children depend on. You know, taking care of yourself is only gonna improve how you are with your children and your relationships in general, like with everybody, not just your significant other, but like your friends, work, all of
right.
that. So I wanted to
Yeah,
ask. Yeah, go
that's
ahead.
all.
Go.
Sorry, and that's all, and that's all part of self care, like you said. You know, like for the gentlemen that listen to you, that listen to your show, take care of yourself. You know what I'm saying? Take time out for yourself, especially as a dad, because I know as a dad we're running around doing this, doing that. You know, like shout out to the moms. Y'all do a lot. You know, y'all do, but dads do a lot. We're all doing a lot. You
Yes.
know what I'm saying? So it's big to make sure, it's huge to make sure you take care of yourself. Take that time out. However it is that you, whatever it is that makes you feel happy and calm, whatever it is, make sure you take that time out for yourself. It's so important.
Yeah. And it's important to teach that to our kids too, because, like, your kids see you doing that, they're gonna be like, oh, I should take time for myself too.
Yeah,
And it's like building a habit that they don't have to learn in their 30s or their 20s. They're learning from little. Dad used to take time to do this thing that he really loves. I'm gonna be doing the same thing. Not necessarily the
right.
same activity, but something that I enjoy. So it's important to show that to our kids too, because they learn so much just by observing us. And why not teach them good coping mechanisms and habits for, like, later on, to help them be successful in life. So last question for you is, how do you enforce your boundaries now that you've learned how to create them? How do you enforce your boundaries?
Uh, I tell people that I have this like invisible like shield
Mm-hmm.
around me, right? And I've gotten to a point in my life where like if something is not for me, it just bounces off that shield. And and it doesn't mean that I'm not open. It doesn't mean that I can't be around any certain thing. No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that the way I look at it and the way I view it and the way I take it in, like I'm not going to allow it to cross certain lines or allow it to change who I am or change how I feel about my day or change about something. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Like I'm okay to listen to somebody who has a totally different opinion than me,
Yeah,
right? If someone feels like mental health ain't it and they don't agree with it, we can
that's
have that
cool.
conversation. I'm open to it. We can have that. We can have that conversation. You know that there's millions of people that come into my comments saying, "Hey, it's not, bro, this is not it, mental health," and they come with all this negative talk, like just to try to get me all riled up or whatever. And I always respond with love and I respond with care because no one is gonna get me. I have this invisible shield in person. I have it. I have like physically. I have it emotionally. I have it online. I have it everywhere I go. I have it so that nothing can cross it and nothing that is not for me is going to enter me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I that's really how I handle boundaries as far as relationships and things like that with
Mm-hmm.
people. If I believe and I feel that if someone is crossing a boundary or has crossed a boundary, I feel like it's okay sometimes disconnect from people. It's okay to disconnect. It's okay to sometimes maybe take some space. And I think it's also okay. You don't need to. Sometimes you don't need to have a conversation with that person because people sometimes they know what they do and they know what they did and they know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So sometimes, depending on what the relationship is and how long you've known the person or whatever the case may be, I think that sometimes if you have to disconnect, you disconnect, and that not just comes with people relationships, also with work,
Mm-hmm.
with whatever it may be. We need to have boundaries as far as especially work. Like people just expect you to just do this, that, this, that. No, like you're not a robot, you're not a machine, you're not. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like, hey, like I will try my best to get this done, but there's a possibility it might not be done because I am human and I have a life outside of this job and this work. And that,
My favorite TikToks are those new ones about enforcing boundaries at work.
yes, No, yeah,
Because people just expect you to just like be available
right,
to them
right. Like no
24/7.
one,
I'm
like no one should be,
sorry.
like if your job is from like 8 to 5 or whatever it is, 8 to 3, 8 to 2. No one should be emailing you about work after a certain time. No one should be expecting you to.
Or before
Right.
a
Or
certain
before,
time.
after, once that time frame is over, I mean, you can send it out, but don't expect me to read an email at 7 p.m. on Friday about something happening. No, because
Nah,
that's it. Like, it's
that's not
over. Like,
happening.
I mean, it's unfortunate that the person who sent the email doesn't value their time or they don't have that boundary that they haven't created themselves, but
Yep.
I have. So therefore, I will not respond to it. And it doesn't have to be in a rude way either. I think a lot of people take that the wrong way also, as far as creating boundaries means you have to be mean about it. You have to be rude. You don't have to be mean or rude about it. You can just,
No.
hey, be as respectful as possible and respectfully be like, that's just what it is, man. I'm not, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. One thing about me is that like I used to always be like a people pleaser, and then once I started enforcing boundaries, people feel like I'm a jerk now. But to preserve my mental health, I'm not gonna be taking on more things than I need
Right.
to on my plate, because that doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve my kid. It doesn't serve anybody. So definitely enforcing boundaries is a thing. And with that, comadres, we're going to end the episode. I want to thank Mozo for coming on and for being so transparent and just genuine. I love that about you. And I'm going to end the episode how I always end it, which is follow me at Comadreando Pod. And you can follow Mozo at...
Follow me at _ the real Mozo. I'm the only Mozo, the real Mozo. If you see anybody else out there, it's not me. It's at _ the real Mozo. That's me.
And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to send me a Comadre-Gram at my email at Marcy at comadreandopod.com or slide up into my DMs. Thank you for spending time with your comadre and your compadre. Good night, everybody. Bye.
Peace.
Hola, comadres. Just a reminder that your favorite show, Comadreando, is turning 1. And in order to celebrate, we're going to have a happy hour get-together at Amores Cafe, which is a Dominican-owned Afro-Latina business in the Heights. Make sure that you register on the Eventbrite to let me know that you're coming, and I hope to see you all there. Again, that's Thursday, October 27th from 6 to 9 p.m.
Do you have a minute for comadre time?